Southampton 3, Leeds United 1 in what should be described as one of Leeds' worst performances of the season on the back of one of Leeds' best performances of the season against Watford. A display in the first half summed up Leeds' entire performance. Second half, Leeds did have more of the game. You could argue that Southampton had very little to do in the second half except to sit in and see out the game. Leeds were passive, slow, lacked urgency, poor passes and mistakes aplenty in a game that put Leeds in a really poor position and allow Southampton to go level on points with Leeds, despite the fact they've been on an incredibly bad run over the last 4 to 5 weeks. You can go through the game, we can break this down, and we will, but it's just not a good... I love Daniel Farke, and I will continue to love Daniel Farke, but it has to be said, today he got his tactics all wrong. A Southampton side that had conceded 19 goals this season, and who had the crowd on their back for the last couple of weeks, and a stadium that looked on edge inside the first 2 minutes until they scored. Farke should have been going for the jugular and should have been going at them as fast as we could, as quick as we could. Leeds sat back. Leeds were passive. Leeds lacked urgency, as I've already said. And Leeds sat in and tried to nick the ball on the counter-attack, which just didn't happen today. Leeds' movement off the ball was slow, poor. You could say there was no movement at times at all. Too many touches from the back. Southampton got their tactics spot on today. Pressed Leeds high, put Leeds under pressure. The first half of the game, to me, looked like everything that went wrong last season. It was a very similar performance, a shaky backline defence. And we should call out this. Liam Cooper comes back into the starting lineup last week, has a very good game because Joe Rodon is suspended. This week, he is accommodated at left centre-back, and Pascal Struijk, who did play left centre-back last week, is pushed out to the right-hand side. Struijk has been excellent for Leeds this season, despite me being critical of him in the first game of the season. He was brilliant every game since that, playing on the left-hand side defence. Cooper was accommodated, Struijk was put to the right, and Cooper's performance today for me was anything but calming. Fell over twice, missed a header, and was at fault, partly at fault, for the first goal for me because he got his positioning all wrong again. Leeds are in a tricky position when it comes to players today. Players did an awful lot of good work last week against Watford to play themselves back into the team and to keep their positions. I did say on Just Joe's show last week that I expected Leeds to go with an unchanged side. They did, because managers don't change winning teams. The argument could be made that Leeds should, and always look at it with a fresh set of eyes. Somerville, Pirro, Rutter, Kamara, Cooper, Shackleton, James were all poor today, in my personal opinion. Some had moments in the game that were quite good, but as an all-round performance, gave Leeds very little. Let's break it down and go through the game. We'll start off with the first half. Leeds a goal down inside of 3 minutes, in 2 minutes according to Sky Sports. You can look at that goal and break it down to several different mistakes. Chris Somerville not tracking back. This is the Chris Somerville of early last season, where he doesn't want to do the defensive side of the game. Whether it's his decision or the manager's decision for him to stay high up and not track runs, he makes a half an effort to track Walker Peters and then stops running. If you watch the goal back and you watch Liam Cooper decides to step out and play offside, but he doesn't seem to communicate that with any of the other defence, who continue to drop. Cooper then can't recover his position, which creates a gap in the middle for a ball through, and it's an easy finish for Armstrong. At that point, you're hoping Leeds can step it up, but Leeds just seem to sit back and sit back and sit back up. We didn't press Southampton when they had the ball in their back line. Rutter stood off, Pirro stood way off, the wingers stood way off, and we let them have the ball and we let them build. Southampton got their tactics spot on today. They pressed Leeds high and they showed the back line that we saw last season with Leeds' weaknesses by pressing them high and causing panic and causing mistakes by Leeds. Leeds under pressure. They were too slow to build out from the back. They didn't try and bypass the press, and at no point during the first half did Leeds ever seem to have any urgency to get back into the game. 20 minutes in, Leeds started to show a little bit more so, and Southampton dropping off a little bit. Leeds pushed, and I always say this, even in the worst performances, every team will have 10 minutes of play in the game. And then 31 minutes into the game, Will Smallbone scores a goal, and again, you've got to look at this. Chris Somerville is running parallel to Smallbone the entire way, and at no point does Chris Somerville ever try to get across the front of his run. Also, Glenn Kamara drops so deep into the back line that he can't press the man that he's supposed to be marking, and it's an easy tap in for Will Smallbone, who's not known for his goal scoring ability. 35 minutes, Somerville at it again, not tracking back again. Leeds sat off, Byram gets in a bit of a muddle, he's turned inside, he's turned outside, And then a ball across the box, Stroke tries to clear it. But again, for me, he's on the wrong side of the pitch. If he's on the other side, it's more natural to him. But it's not. Takes a nick off him and goes in. Can't criticise Stroke for that. He's trying to clear the ball and he's doing everything he can. He doesn't know that ball's going wide. Half-time 3-0. And my comments on Twitter at half-time were simple. Massive changes needed at half-time. We can't wait to the 60th and 70th minute to start making changes in this game. You could have said Kamara, Cooper, Shackleton, James, Somerville could have easily been withdrawn at half-time and had no complaints about their performance in the first half. My criticisms, by the way, on all of this are based on this game and this game purely. I'm not talking about them as total players because they've had some great moments this season, but it is in context of the game. Expected changes, second half comes out, no changes. None at all. And as I said, Cooper accommodated. That should have been changed at half-time and allowed Stroke back in. Southampton had nothing to do in the second half. They didn't need to keep pressing Leeds. They didn't need to attack Leeds. All they needed to do was put a low block, which we have struggled this season to break down, and make it difficult for Leeds. Leeds lacked creativity again, and every time we get into this position, every time Leeds don't score, we are going to say this again. Leeds are lacking a creative player in the final third, that when teams do sit in and when Leeds do need a spark, we just don't seem to have it. Chris Somerville doesn't do enough for me to justify being a 10. In the second half, Leeds moved him in there, and it wasn't effective for me. 72 minutes, Leeds did get a chance. Joe Pirro possibly could have had 2 goals in the second half had his touch been better. A very, very, very off day for Joe Pirro. His first touch was poor. Passing wasn't great. It lacked any kind of tempo or pace on the ball. Dropped short on a lot of occasions. And then 72 minutes, we finally get a chance. Not good enough from Pirro. Pascal Stroke does score for Leeds with a lovely goal, and this should be said. It's a fantastic takedown from Pascal Stroke and a lovely finish into the corner. Pirro has one later on, similar from a set piece across in. Lovely touch back from Jorginho Rutter, who did have moments in the game, where he looked good, but in general, got caught in possession far too much and seemed to be a little bit slow off the mark when he did get the ball and got crowded out and pressed very easily at times. Ball drops to Pirro anyway in that position, and Pirro needs to find the corner, and it's a really soft, timid strike that dribbles into the goalkeeper. Let's go through the players. Let's talk about some players. Cooper, as I said, for me, not a good game for him. Not a game that would calm a defence anyway. He was shaky. He looked nervous. He was slow in possession when we did get it. He took lots of touches to get that lovely left-footed clip that he loves. It's a lovely pass, but at times it just needs to be a simple ball and move much quicker up the park to get Leeds going. As I said, Stroke should not have been moved out to the right-hand side. If anyone should have played in the right, it should have been Cooper, if that's the case. And if he does have a bad game at right back, then you take him off and you bring on Joe Rodman. We can't be protecting players because of legacy. I love everything that Liam Cooper has done for Leeds United, but in this performance and at this point in his career, he knows himself. If you've got a better player that can play in that position, you play him. It didn't work for Leeds today, and they got it wrong. Jorginho Rutter was fine during the game, had moments of nice touches, some nice bit of skill, and created some chances as well. Won the second half where a lovely ball across the front post of the goalkeeper, and nobody made a run across the keeper to score, which was really disappointing to see. Pirro off it today, way off it today, and again you could argue, is it because he's playing in a 10? For me, I would rather just have him on the last man. But again, just in general, he did get chances today. He was off the play a little bit. Dan James worked hard, ran around an awful lot, but he's not a finisher. He gets chances and he just can't score. He keeps slicing the ball when he does get the ball out of his feet to shoot. Worked hard, but didn't create anything today. Not his best game in terms of even creation. I talked last week about, we can talk about Dan James' impact in a game, but if he's effective in a game and creating assists, great, you can talk about it. Didn't happen for him today at all. Defending, and this is as a unit, as an entire team, Leeds did not defend well. We didn't transition from attack to defence quick enough. We didn't get back into positions where we could help our defence out, and we left them exposed. And we know what this Leeds defence is like when you've got Stroke and Cooper in it from last season and Jamie Shackleton there as well. How overrun they can get and how nervous they can get when they are pressed very, very hard. Glenn Kamara looked off the pace of it again today. Had a fine game last week. Looked really composed last week. This week, not so much at all. Looked to be dropping deeper, trying to cover himself, was leaving space in the middle of the park for players. Ethan Ampadu was fine in the middle of the pitch. Shackleton at right back was okay, but you could argue again, it's square pegs and round holes still for Leeds when there's options there as well. You can't wait for Jed Spence to come back and be ready to go for Leeds, can we? It's going to be an important one as well. And yeah, just all round a bad day for Leeds United. You hope it's a bad day at the office, but it needs changes. I've got to call this out and I've got to say it. We cannot keep waiting until 70 minutes. Leeds made their first change in the 72nd minute. We can't keep waiting the 70 minutes that go in a game before we make changes. You could have made 4 or 5 changes at half time in that game easily based on performances and lack of urgency in the first half. It wasn't done. It took 72 minutes. And again, yeah, Leeds had plenty of possession in the second half, but what did we actually do with that possession? Southampton just sat back and soaked it up. Possession without purpose What's the point of it? There needs to be urgency there. Leeds need to want to get forward. It's a bad day at the office. Let's hope that's all it is. Leeds have been excellent over the last 6 games, going unbeaten. Today, we're brought back to ground with an absolute thud. Farke got tactics wrong today for me, and I think he needs to start looking at using his bench, which is a good bench earlier in games. I think if we previous managers at Leeds United may have even made changes in the first half of that game. It was that bad. So let's put it down to an off day. Let's keep it balanced. Let's keep it simple. Put it down to an off day. We'll see where Leeds go from here. But for the next game that Leeds have, some players for me have done their absolute best to play themselves out of the team that they worked really hard to play their way into. Every single Leeds player that's in that team will have to continue to fight hard for their position because there is really good competition there on the bench. Like Sir Jadon Anthony, Pat Bamford back as well. You've got Ian Pavetta. You've got other players coming back into that side as well. You've got Archie Gray sitting on the bench as well. We've got Joe Road on there as well. There is quality on that bench that needs to be used at the times when the players on the pitch aren't performing. It happens. Happens to the best of teams in the world. They have bad days. They have off days. Let's hope it's just an off day. It might just be a little bit of a reality check to think just because you've gone beaten for 6 games doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You've got to keep your performance levels high in this division if you're going to do anything and if you're not going to get a shock like today. So that's it for me, folks. Thanks very much. Back on Monday with the news. Leeds United 1, Southampton 3. A performance that should be put in the rearview mirror and moved on from quickly. Lessons to be learned, changes to be made, and we'll see where Leeds go from here. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you Monday. Bye.